I did a lot of research before I went on my very first trip with my CPAP, which was to Croatia. But even after that time, I've learned so much. Every time I go on a trip, I learn something different.
Welcome, everybody. I am Emma Cooksey. I'm the Sleep Apnea Program Manager at Project Sleep. And this is another one of our Sleep Apnea Squad series. So today we're talking about traveling with sleep apnea, and I'm really excited about our guests. So I'm going to have go ahead and share my slides with everybody. And can everybody see? Okay,
Yep.
so again, today's topic is traveling with sleep apnea. So I'm going to just really briefly let our guests introduce themselves. Did you want to go first, Kristen?
Sure, I will. Hi, everybody. My name's Kristen Cassio. I post about my CPAP machine on Instagram. I was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea in 2020 after 15 years of unexplained symptoms. So I went through that entire journey that I learned through social media is not uncommon. So I love to travel. I've always been a traveler. And when I got my CPAP, I just learned to bring that along with me around the world. I'm based in Boston and I'm a clinical social worker.
Well, great to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Harris, did you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Emma, and Project Sleep. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm board certified in behavioral sleep medicine, and I used to run the behavioral sleep medicine program here in New York City at the Montefiore Medical Center Sleep Center. I was there for a long time, and now I'm in private practice, and I see patients specializing in women's sleep issues, insomnia, and I also have two books, The Women's Guide to Overcoming Insomnia, as well as The Essential Guide to Children's Sleep.
Good deal. And also, you're on social media, we
Oh,
should just say.
yeah, at Sleep Doc Shelby on social
There you
media.
go.
Kind of forget.
So I just wanted to really quick before we get into our discussion, remind everybody that this is a discussion meant to provide information and resources. It's not intended as medical advice. So if you have questions about your own or a loved one's sleep health or other medical questions, we recommend you speak directly to your healthcare provider. But I hope that this is going to give us a really good overview of this topic and hopefully some interesting discussion. So the other thing to mention is, as with all of these discussions on Project Sleep's YouTube channel, we create a PDF toolkit, is what we call it. It's kind of a guide to this topic. So we'll take all of the learnings from today's discussion and condense them down into a printable PDF that people can share, and people usually find those really helpful. And we'll include a lot of resources that we talk about today. So I'm just going to do a little overview. So I put a picture of Kristen's really well-traveled CPAP machine. She puts all the different uh, patches from all over the world on it. So we're going to be talking today a
Love
lot
it.
about our lived experiences as people living with sleep apnea. So we'll talk a little bit about how symptoms can impact travel and also about the treatment options and what we need to know about that and traveling. And one of the big topics is going to be air travel. And I'm especially interested to ask Kristen a lot about her experience of traveling with her CPAP machine. There's quite a lot to know about that. And I also think we're going to learn a lot about the mishaps that we've both had through our journeys. I know that I've certainly had a few issues that people can learn from. And I also want to dig in a little bit to um, sleep and travel in general, because I
Yeah.
think we forget as people with sleep apnea that anything that affects, general sleep in the general population can also affect us. So things like jet lag can also affect people with sleep apnea. So we're going to dig into some of those things, which I think will be really helpful. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I think, Kristen, if you're okay with us starting with you, I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about your journey to diagnosis and maybe if you had any particular like symptoms that affected travel before your diagnosis.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. So I, starting at the age of 16, started having symptoms of excessive daytime sleepiness. I did not know that that was a way to describe it until well after I got
Mm.
diagnosed. But I had, low energy. No matter how much I slept, I would sleep 10 plus hours a night. Just sort of known around with my family and friends. And I'm always going to be taking a nap, sort of always going to be more tired than everybody else. And I finally got diagnosed at the age of 31. So after 15 years of having these symptoms, bringing them to healthcare providers, but the dots really never connected, is what I'll always say. And I ended up really advocating for myself by tracking my own sleep, my own energy, how excessively I was sleeping for a couple of weeks and disproving everything else that it was blamed on. It wasn't my lifestyle because this is what I did this day and this is what I did that day.
Yeah.
So really learn to, advocate finally after all of those years for myself to say something else is going on. We got to figure this out. So that's how I sort of ended up with my diagnosis. I was shocked when I found out that I had obstructive sleep apnea. I was looking for any answers. So when they said do an at-home sleep study, I was more than happy to do it, but I did not think that anything was going to come from it because I had been down that road for 15 years. So I
Yeah.
was absolutely shocked. And I got started on a CPAP machine. I was lucky. It only took just a couple of weeks to get my CPAP machine after I was diagnosed. I had a really great DME provider that was linked in with my sleep doctor's office. So I started about 2 to 3 weeks after my diagnosis getting treatment, and I adjusted really well to CPAP. I love my CPAP machine. I know I'm kind of in the minority sometimes in that way. I love it. It's made such a difference for my life, and I'm happy to bring it everywhere with me around the world.
Yeah. So what I'm really interested in is, were you really into traveling before you got your diagnosis and started CPAP? And how was that for you with some of the symptoms you were talking about, like feeling low energy and not getting refreshing sleep?
Yeah, travel has always been the passion of mine. I always knew as soon as I graduated high school and went to college that I wanted to travel as much as I could. And I did that. When I went to college, I studied abroad twice. And then after college, I've taken every opportunity that I can to travel around the world. So, and as I said, I didn't get diagnosed until my early 30s. So that was many, many years of traveling around the world and doing the whole thing, going to hostels, taking overnight flights, overnight buses, all of those things. But it's interesting because, my low energy, my sleepiness was always persistent. There was never really anything that connected that, oh, I was more tired when I did the overnight flight, or I couldn't sleep on the plane, or I couldn't sleep on the bus. Like in a strange way, because I had to deal with my untreated symptoms for so long, I was just sort of used to it, if that, and that my family and
Yeah.
friends were used to it. So I wasn't afraid to say, like, I'm going to sleep in today while you all go do that. Or, I got to head back early because I'm really tired. So I think when people, when you are looking for answers and your symptoms are not being treated, you just have to do the best that you can and you have to continue to live your life. And travel was always such a passion of mine that I just said I'm going to figure this out no matter what. And I did so pretty successfully, but
I
just a lot
relate to
of
that
prioritizing.
so much. Like it just
Hmm.
like I was really similar in terms of, I think in some of the symptoms, like I definitely had a lot of daytime sleepiness, which again, I didn't really know that word back then. But there's a lot of things I think about now more in retrospect. So one of the things I always talk about is a trip I took to Egypt with my husband, and he was really big into scuba diving. And we went on this boat and like we were staying like right at the Sinai Peninsula, and we went out for him to do his scuba diving. And every single other person on that boat trip put on a, like if they weren't scuba diving, they put on a snorkel and they spent 2 hours looking at all the amazing fish and all of that. And I spent the whole 2 hours asleep on the back of that boat,
Right.
snoring and like, there's all these funny photos of me sleeping. And I think at the time I just felt like, well, this is just what I need to do to make
Yeah.
it through this, but I wasn't really, I just didn't know what was happening. But yeah, I think I was the same. I would take the trip and just like try and manage as best I could. So yeah, I'm definitely getting more out of trips like now after treatment for sure.
Yes.
Um, so, Dr. Harris, so before we get into sleep apnea specifically and travel,
Hmm.
I just would love for you to give us kind of an overview of some of the things, the ways that travel can impact people's sleep, which I know is a vast topic, but I'm thinking about things like jet lag
Yeah.
and just changes to your sleep environment.
Well, I think the first thing is when you're getting there. So a lot of people, especially because I specialize in anxiety issues, so there's flying anxiety. So you're starting
Yeah.
off already, like some people just can't sleep on a plane, or they struggle to sleep on a plane, or they're just so nervous leading up to a flight that they're losing sleep. So you're going into it sometimes even feeling like your tank is less full of gas to be able to go. And then on top of that, there's just the environment change. So when we're thinking about it from an apnea perspective, thinking about, say, central sleep apnea, right? If you're going to someplace that's got higher altitude, I see this from time to time in my practice. People just have more apneic events. They might have worse centrals while they're at a higher altitude. And so they're feeling more headaches, more exhaustion, sleepiness, all these things can happen. And then forget about the altitude. We think about just the environment of where you are. So is it dark? Like that's my biggest thing. When I travel, with or without sleep apnea, if I'm staying in an Airbnb, oh, I often bring like garbage bags, like contractor bags,
For
because a
the
lot of them don't
windows.
have, yeah, for the windows, because a
Yeah.
lot of them don't have light blocking shades. I know it's a choice with like painter's tape, but it could be loud. You can do all the research you can in advance, but you don't know what's going to be. Even if you're in a hotel, there can be people who are slamming those doors really loud. Then also temperature, right? It might not have the best air conditioning. It might be too cold that you're having trouble warming up. And then thinking about just the environment with where you're sleeping, the actual mattress itself might just be really uncomfortable, too soft, might worsen your posture at night. So then you might actually sleep in a different position for some people, which could worsen your breathing at night
Mhm.
as well. And then the final thing is that a lot of times we end up having, if we're traveling, we're sharing, oh, there's a few things. We're sharing a room, right, with other people. So I have a lot of patients that have what people call, I hate the term, a sleep divorce normally at home, but then there's sleep alliance, we like to call instead. When you're traveling, they're like, well, we couldn't get two rooms, so we're all in the same room, and my kids are in my room with me. So then there's more disturbance there. And then there's changes with when you're eating, um, alcohol, more caffeine sometimes, just the diet changes. And then the
Mhm.
final thing that happens is jet lag. So, like you're traveling, you're on one time zone, your body is in a different one, and that jet lag can also make your sleep much more disrupted at the beginning. And then you put all those things together, and it's just a big vicious cycle for a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you for that because there's so many things you mentioned that I didn't even think about. But I suppose people do change like their eating habits and especially drinking alcohol. I didn't even think of that.
Whenever I travel, we often our sleep, if we go to my family, because we're on the East Coast, sometimes we'll go
Mhm.
to Europe, and they a lot of times like to eat a lot later. So
Yeah.
we're normally very early birds. I mean, I'm having dinner sometimes at like 8 o'clock at night there and a glass of wine. And so it's like it gets changed a lot. Not always the most
And
sleep friendly, but I'm enjoying my trip.
right. So are there any particular thing? I'm just really interested because I keep seeing you going to really exciting places to run marathons. Are there any particular things that you're doing? Like, are you preparing ahead of time to try and get ahead of the
Well,
jet lag or not really?
it depends on if I want to run it with a specific time goal. So, like a number of years ago, I went to Berlin and I was going to really race that. So, I really advanced my sleep schedule before going. I was really strict about various things, no alcohol, no, like, I was really strict. I tried to sleep on the plane at certain times. This most recent time I traveled, I didn't care at all. And I just said, yeah, I'm just going to run and have fun. Sometimes we put too much thought into it. And I was like, I'm going to be
Yeah.
in London. I'm going to have fun. So I did certain things with like avoiding caffeine at certain times, getting light at certain times, but I didn't stress too much about it.
Right. Good deal. And then Kristen, so you had kind of shared that you once you got your obviously it was a long time to your diagnosis, but once you got your diagnosis, you adapted pretty quickly to CPAP. So did you have any thoughts around, any trepidation about like how am I going to travel with the CPAP? Like you got used to it at home, but then do you remember like that first trip and what happened?
I thought instantly about how can I travel with this. So immediately when I got my CPAP, because I'm always planning the next trip, but my job gets in the way, I always say, because I don't, I have to wait for my vacation time to stack up. I'm always basically negative vacation time, but I'm always planning the next trip. Where am I going to go next? What am I going to see next? So that was the first thing that I thought of. I was Googling, can you bring your CPAP through airport security? Like, how do you use your CPAP on a plane? So I learned a lot about that before I took my first big trip with my CPAP. But I actually have found since that time, I'm now up to, I think, 18 countries that I've taken my CPAP to in that six
Wow.
years. And, some of them were very quick trips. While I'm already in one country, I pop somewhere else for the night type of thing when you're in Europe.
And
It's so
got the
easy to
patch
get
for your
around.
CPAP machine.
Yes, I have to get it everywhere. Yeah. So I did a lot of research before I went on my very first trip with my CPAP, which was to Croatia. But even after that time, I've learned so much. Every time I go on a trip, I learn something different, I swear, about how to get through security, how to make sure that you have the right power. I just went on a cruise, so for the first time ever, I had to bring an extension cord with me because the outlet is not close to the bed. So it's a constant learning and
Yeah.
preparation. So I always say that it's not difficult to travel with your CPAP machine, but you have to be prepared and you
Yeah.
have to really know what types of things you're going to be looking out for. For me, I love every aspect of travel. I love the whole thing of like, how am I going to get to the airport? What I love being in the airport. So I'm kind of
Oh, you're
like a
getting to
little
the
bit
airport?
strange in that way. I love all the logistical stuff about related before I even get to the trip. So for me, it's like kind of fun to look up what am I supposed to be doing? Where are the outlets? I've definitely, when I've stayed in a hostel before, like zoomed in on the pictures to see, is
Yeah.
there an outlet next to this bed?
Mhm.
Type of thing. But it does help me out because then once I get there, I'm already prepared. And that lessens the anxiety as well.
Yeah.
If you go into the trip feeling like nothing's going to get in the way of using your CPAP while you're there. And yes, I get a patch every single place that I go and I add it to my CPAP bag because the CPAP bag is not the most exciting bag possible. So, and it makes it more unique if you have these travel souvenirs.
But
So
to
I
add to
feel,
that, oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
quick to add to that, as a sleep doc, a psychologist, one of the things that brings many of us a lot of joy is when we are traveling and we see
Yeah.
people with most people would never know,
Yeah.
but we know what the CPAP machines look like and what the cases look
Mhm.
like, and there's something little nod. Like we just
Yeah.
it brings us joy. So
They're everywhere. It's
they
so
are.
true, though. Like I was actually just going to make a reel about this. I didn't get to it yet because I took some pictures when I was on my cruise and I
Yeah.
was on a train, and you can see people with their CPAPs. And it's like when you get a new car, right? You've never
Yeah.
seen, your red Ford Focus before you get it, and then you see it everywhere. It's the same thing as the CPAP bag. They're everywhere. So that's another thing to cut down on the anxiety of it is just knowing that and security, airport security, flight attendants, most people already know what that is because
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
seen it thousands of times before.
And I feel like things have changed for the better. Like I feel like since I started CPAP in 2008, so I'm kind of older, I feel like now it's a very like run of the mill. They're used to seeing it. They
Yeah.
really don't ask questions. But we're gonna get to some specific advice. But I feel like when I first started traveling with CPAP, I did everything wrong. Like especially going through TSA when I remember taking a trip to Scotland and I went through TSA with I left my travel bag at home and I packed my CPAP machine inside all my underwear, like in my normal bag.
Right.
And which is now so crazy to me, but don't do that, people. Like it's just so much more difficult. They
Don't lose
end up
the
pulling
space.
everything out.
I need all that space for my clothes,
Yeah.
so that's why
Right.
I don't put my
Separate.
bag in. Yeah.
So I guess let's start, Kristen, with trying to explain to people about, like, I feel as though going through an airport and the air travel part of it is a really big thing that people ask me about a lot. So can you just start by talking a little bit about TSA, even in the beginning? Like, what do you do with like keeping it in its travel bag, right? And then talk to us a little bit about distilled water and what you do with that.
Yes. When I first started traveling with my CPAP machine, I would take the CPAP out of the bag and put it in the little thing to go through security. But over time, I've learned that you really don't need to do that. You can put it through the scanner, the security scanner fully in its bag. And if for whatever reason they pulled it aside and opened it, they would know right away that it's a
Yeah.
CPAP machine.
Yeah.
I have never had that happen because, like
Yeah.
I said, they're very recognizable. I actually had a TSA security agent. Boston is my home airport, and they're always so nice when I go through with my CPAP and my distilled water, which I'll talk about in a moment. I did actually have someone an agent say to me, "Oh, I actually just got diagnosed with sleep apnea, and I'm going to be starting a CPAP soon." So
I
I
love
was
it.
just chatting with him about that a little bit. But if one recommendation that I do have, if you just because it helps with travel in general, is if you fly, I would say more than 2 to 3 times a year, internationally or domestically, I do think it's worth it to get TSA pre-check. It's only about $75. When I got it, it might have gone up a little bit, but I don't think too much. And it lasts you 4 years. And
Yeah.
then you can go through much shorter security line in Boston. I just breeze right through. I never stand in line in security when I have pre-check. And you don't have to take all your liquids out of your bag. You don't have to take your
Yeah.
shoes off.
Perfect.
So it's just one less thing to have to worry about when you already have an extra thing with you
But it
of the
is
CPAP
worth
machine.
saying if you have a partner and they don't go through the same thing to get their TSA pre-check, you either have to choose to abandon them
Wait.
at
Yeah.
TSA or you have to slum it in the other line.
Yeah. Oh, I'll
Right.
abandon them so fast. Yeah. I went through that work. I got my TSA privilege. I'll meet them on the other side.
Yeah.
But so for that, and it's also less people there. So
Yes.
if you were feeling anxious about, especially if it's the first time that you're bringing your CPAP and you just weren't really sure, am I going to get pulled aside? Is someone going to question me? There's less people around you, which
Yeah.
always makes it less overwhelming. When it comes to the distilled water, people always tell me, because I will post about distilled water sometimes in traveling with distilled water, and people always tell me in my comments, uh, just wait until you get to the destination. You can find distilled water easily. I have never been able to do that. I
Yeah.
swear. I really
Not
And it
swear.
easy.
depends,
I've
it
never been
depends as
able to find
well
it.
what time
Yeah.
you're arriving. So
Yeah.
Yes.
sometimes I've arrived on like a
Yes.
later flight and it's like if I didn't have the bottles with me, you want to just go straight to bed
Yeah.
rather than try and
Yeah.
find a pharmacy or
And
something.
you don't want to be wandering around, and it really depends where you go to. One of my most recent trips, I flew to Guatemala, then I took a 4 hour bus, and then I took a boat to get where I was going. So I'm not stopping on the way to
Yeah.
search through pharmacies. So I bring small distilled water bottles with me that are specifically marked. You can find them online, you can find them anywhere online, usually in 12 packs. They're a little bit more expensive because anything is going to be more expensive that's, in these
Yeah.
smaller bottles. So I think it's about $25 for 12 of them, but a 12 pack lasts me at least a year.
Mhm.
If I know I'm going to be going on a trip, if you're checking a bag, it doesn't matter. You can toss as many in there as you can fit. But if you're taking it in your carry-on, they do separately screen that when you go through TSA
Okay.
security. So the best way to go about it, the bottle should be sealed. Most of them are labeled and they say for medical devices, TSA
Yeah.
compliant. They're still gonna search it because just because something says it's TSA compliant, they're gonna double check you. But you basically what I will do is I take the bottles. I've brought one or two at a time because that's usually will get me through the majority of my trip. I did have somebody recently message me and say that they brought an entire 12 pack of them
Wow.
through security and successfully got through. So do with that what you will. But
So I
yes.
just want to say that the last time I flew to Scotland, there was a lady in front of me who was trying to bring 8 bottles through, and they
Oh,
were not having it.
They
okay.
They
weren't.
they
Okay.
allowed her to take
Yeah.
4, and they
Hmm.
were just like, "You need to dispose of this or
Well,
put it in a check bag."
I mean,
Yeah.
how many bottles are you needing to bring for
Right.
your PAP for a 1 week trip, let's say? How
Yeah.
many do you usually pack?
I
One or two?
two, one to
Right. If
two.
you're
Yeah.
needing 6 to 8 because you're worried, then there might be something wrong with your machine. Like that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a
something
good
else to
point.
consider.
Yeah. Or what I didn't learn that it was interesting that you brought it up already, Shelby, about the altitude is I went
Hmm.
to Peru and it's famously much higher
Yes.
altitude and I was flying through that distilled water. Those two
Yeah,
bottles lasted
true.
me probably that one night, but then that was fine. That was
Yeah.
fine. But you just basically what I will do to also make my life easier as I'm going through security, if I have one or two of those bottles, is put them separately aside, take them out of your bag. If you can get the attention of the security person, which also, if you have pre-check, it's much easier to do
Yes.
that because there's not a lot of people there. You can say, I have these for my medical equipment, I have these for my CPAP machine before you even put them through
Yeah.
the belt. If you can't get that person's attention, that's fine because when it goes through the belt, they're still gonna pull it aside for you. And basically, I don't know what exactly it is that they do, but it only takes a couple of minutes. They'll just put it in something. They don't even open it up. They put it in something to test it to just make sure, okay, this actually is water. And especially if they see your CPAP machine, they know that you need it and then you're on your way. And for all the reasons we just mentioned, I think it makes your life easier when you're traveling. And I just really don't count on being able to find it when I first land. And I don't want to wander
Yeah.
around store to store to store when I'm on my trip just looking for water.
And
I
oh, go ahead,
go ahead.
Emma.
I was
I was
just
just,
gonna say because we every time we have a clinician here, I'm like, can we just please explain to people that tap water isn't sterile?
mhm.
I think oftentimes, like if I post on social media, sometimes people will say, well, I just use tap water wherever I'm going and it's fine. Do you want to just share with us a little bit
Yeah,
that that's not
tap is not sterile.
right?
It can have pathogens in it. It's just, it's
You
not
don't want
worth
to
the
breathe it.
bet. It's not exactly. It's not worth the bet in
Yeah.
my book. Though
Yeah.
you might be fine many times, but that one time that you breathe something in, it could be really nasty. Just get distilled water. It will make it a lot
Mhm.
easier.
Yeah.
Just to add quickly with the TSA pre-check, a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to get it. I want to invest it. If some people's credit cards actually have it
Yes.
included in it, so that's one thing to think about. And if you travel internationally a lot, if you get global entry, it comes with
Yeah.
TSA pre-check. So
Hmm.
there are other ways to think about it. But yeah, if you have a credit card, definitely see if that's a bonus that comes with it.
I gave it to my husband for Christmas.
That's a nice
Was
Christmas
That's a
was
good
present.
kind of
gift.
a gift
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But, that was one way to
There
go.
you go.
So before we move on to actually using CPAP on flights, I wanted to just talk a little bit about TSA for other treatment options. Just because I know now people have hypoglossal nerve stimulator implants, so things like the Inspire implant and now the Genio implant.
Mhm.
So, from what I could gather, it's really worth talking to your specific doctor about it if you have any questions. But in general, those are implants that can set off metal detectors. So, you might want to just kind of share with the personnel there at TSA that you have an implanted medical device, and you should also have. They have special ID cards that they give people with those implants. So, just to be aware of that. And then another thing is, I'm now taking Zepbound along with being on CPAP and my oral appliance. And so this was the first trip I'd taken when I just went to Scotland with Zepbound in tow. And that there's a few issues around that just because it is supposed to be refrigerated. So you might just want to get with your doctor. So for me, it worked out with the day that I took it, like you can have it not refrigerated for a certain number of hours. So that worked out well with the day that I had to take it. I just arrived and was able to use it. But some of the main things about that are bring your original prescription with
Yes.
you, like the original packaging. Make sure, like, if it's in an injector pen, leave it exactly as it comes, or if it's vials, like however it comes is how you need to transport it. Did you have anything else, Shelby, about that? Like,
I would just check with the CDC
yeah,
because it has a lot of advice. There are
yeah,
certain countries too that you're flying to are more strict than other countries when it comes to
yeah,
certain medications. So, like for example, I was in Japan last August, and they are notoriously very, very strict with medication. So, if you come if you are worried about it, always check online, check with that country as well, check
Yeah.
with the CDC. And if it's slightly questionable, you're just not sure, bring it in the original packaging, the original prescription, have an actual copy of the prescription is really useful. I have, it's not the copy, but I have all of them on my phone, because most of them are online, honestly. So I have most of them on my phone at all times when going through TSA.
Yeah, that's really smart advice. So we actually in our resources at the end and also in our toolkit, we'll have some links to the CDC website that has some helpful advice about traveling with medications. So that's all good. So now we're going to get on to the stuff that I genuinely want to hear exactly how Kristen is using her PAP device on a plane. Because even though I've done a number of transatlantic overnight um, plane trips, I've never actually used my CPAP successfully on a plane. And so I feel like you're the expert, Kristen. So we want to know all about everything you have to do. So what things do we need to do in advance around what documentation do you need?
Yeah.
How do you know whether you can plug in your device or you need a backup battery?
Mhm.
Tell us everything.
The first piece of advice that I have about using your CPAP on an airplane is sort of my just advice in general is don't worry that people are going to be looking at you or that you're going to
Right.
look strange or that it's going to be
Mm,
embarrassing. You need it to breathe. And they turn out the
okay.
lights anyway, but I never ever feel any sort of embarrassment or shame around that. The very first time that I flew overnight was to Croatia, and it was the first time that I got my CPAP. So I actually just didn't know anything about it. I had looked it up a little bit, but I was ultimately just a little too nervous to use it on board. So I slept without it, which I usually never ever do, and I
Mm,
paid the price the next day. I was even more. It's like double the jet lag if you didn't, you didn't really sleep, even though you thought you did. So after that, I really committed to if I'm going on, especially an overnight flight. I'm also on the East Coast, so when you travel to Europe, it's always pretty much always an overnight
yeah.
flight, and then you land there, 6 or
I
7
should just
a.m.
interject that it's not so much that I slept without it, I just literally don't sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Which is
that's a
just, yeah,
different
that's
issue.
just as bad.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. And then and then it just kind of sets your whole trip back. The first
yeah,
day, you're just kind of a zombie. And so,
Right.
the couple of things, again, like I said, you really just have to be prepared. So, because every airline I have found, is different in what they want you to do in order to use this medical device on board. So some of them will let you plug your machine right into the in-seat power outlet.
Yeah.
Most of them do not, but some of
Right.
them do. I'm always a little bit surprised when they say that. I have a portable battery, an external battery for my CPAP because of the amount of time that I travel and how much I love and prioritize
Where are
travel.
you getting the battery from?
So I got it from, I don't know if we could say places, but there's online retailers that will
Okay.
send, that you can purchase external, call them external CPAP batteries or
yeah.
external power solutions for your battery. There are so many that are on the market. I had one. They're expensive though, I will say. It is
They
an
are.
investment. It's a couple $100
Okay.
for that, to use that battery, to
But
buy
it's
that
worth
battery.
saying for anybody who is anywhere the extreme weather is an issue. Like I'm in
Yes.
Florida and I've used my backup battery for my CPAP. I always have it ready to go during storms.
Yeah.
And especially like if people are having to evacuate and you don't know if you're going to be by a
Yeah.
power source, it's really important to keep
Yes.
that charged. And so even though they are expensive, like
Hmm.
I've used them for several trips, but the main reason I have it is because of hurricanes and
Yeah.
those kind of issues in case I get displaced and have to go somewhere
Yes,
else.
absolutely. And most of them will last between 2 to 3 nights, but now there are new batteries out there that last up to
Great.
5 nights
Yeah.
on one charge for your machine. I actually just bought a new one. So I had one that I got about 5 years ago. It still works completely fine, but it was a little heavier. Now it was like about 3 pounds. And now over time, they've just made them so much smaller and sleeker. So I decided to invest in a new battery that I just got that's only 2 pounds. It's so small and it's
Wow.
so easy to transport with you because I mean, not only are you want to use it, overnight on the plane, but you can't put that in checked luggage. That's a huge lithium battery.
Yes.
You
Right.
cannot put it in your your check luggage, so you had to carry it with you. So if it's in your backpack, it kind of weighs you down over time. You want to make sure when you're looking for a portable CPAP battery that it is specifically listed as being TSA compliant because batteries have they're all lithium ion batteries and they have a specific wattage to them. And you can take a battery through TSA security up to a certain power, so up to 160 watts. And so some people have bigger batteries that are not TSA compliant because they can power multiple machines, or if you want to go
Yeah.
camping, or if you really have unreliable power at home. So really make sure that the one that you're looking for is under the wattage allowable through TSA.
And sometimes
That
they will. It's the same as CPAP machines also have to be TSA compliant in order to use them on a flight. And quite often they'll have that in really small letters on the back of the machine. Do you also take a letter to say that it's like, I think it's an FAA
Yeah.
letter, like all the different CPAP manufacturers have them on their website
Yeah.
so you can
hmm
download.
Yeah,
So
you
that's a
should
good,
take them.
good idea.
That's the best practice, and that's why I tell people all the time. But I have actually never brought one
Yeah.
with me because I can just pull it up on my phone if I really need
Yeah.
it. You can find it. You just Google, I have a ResMed FAA
Yes.
compliance letter. I have never been stopped and asked for it. I have been questioned at security about my battery though. So one thing that I
Okay.
will say is because the one that I had before was very big, I
Yeah.
didn't get questioned with the sleeker one. And it was in a different country. I was coming back from another country that maybe just haven't seen them before. So I always bring with me the manual, the instruction manual that comes with the battery, because that will
Right.
say, if it doesn't already say it on the battery, many of them do, but it will say exactly in there what the wattage is, what its purpose is, what's allowable and what's not. And so that's good to have because it's hard to explain. I mean, I don't really know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the power of these batteries. So you can just show it to them.
Yeah.
And then they looked through it and, sent me on my way and it was fine. So back to the, power, if you're using it, on a plane, some of them will let you plug it into your in-seat power outlet. But in my experience, that's less common. Then they'll say you have to bring your own battery. And the airlines are kind of
Mm.
like, well, if you want to use this, you got to bring your own battery. So I would say to, double check if you have the time. I know last minute trips come up, but if you have the time, at least 2 weeks in advance, go onto the airline website and you can find a page that's either for medical devices or assistive devices. And look for that page, and it will list through all medical equipment that might be brought on board. And there'll be a specific section for CPAP or BiPAP, and it will tell you exactly that. Can you plug it in to the power outlet? And do you need specific permission to use it on board? Because some of them do want you to tell them in advance that you're going to be
Contact
using
them.
that so
Yeah.
they can give you permission. I just came back from a trip a couple of days ago, so I am still a little bit jet lagged myself. So looking forward to some tips on that. But I flew Lufthansa, which is an international German airline, and they wanted to submit something in advance so that they could give me permission, and so to use it on board. And I was actually shocked. It just said email, this email address, that you're going to need your CPAP, and they responded to me within 24 hours. And
Wow.
then when I got on board, the flight attendants actually came up and said, "Oh, I know you have a medical device. Do you need anything from us?" And it was great. So you just want to make sure because you don't want to get on board and then they had required you to do that and now you can't use it.
Yeah.
So just always look for that page, medical devices or assistive devices. And
So,
every airline is different on what they want you to do.
yeah. Um, so since you were mentioning power from the battery, do you want to talk a little bit about what do you do to make sure that your CPAP machine works in the power outlets? Like, do you have to take a adapter or what are you doing?
Yeah, if you're able to plug it into the in-seat power outlet, I would double check what type of outlet that plane is going to have. Most of them do have the hookup for the standard United States plug. So I've never had to bring an adapter or anything like that, but you always want to check because if
What
you're
what about the destination you're going to though? Do you
Yes, yeah, and then yeah, you do need to check, but this is for all of your devices that you're going to be plugging in, including your charging your phone.
yeah.
You need to check at the destination what their
Your
outlets. They're
curling
this
iron or your straightener as
Yes,
well.
yeah,
Yes.
everyone's heard those stories of you plug in
Oh,
your blow dryer and it sort of like
sparking.
explodes, yeah, when
Yeah.
you're somewhere else because, you thought that you could plug it into the outlet, but it doesn't, the it's not compatible. So I've also learned a lot about this through my travels. Most CPAP machines, the majority of CPAP machines are what's called dual voltage machines. So they will the range of voltage that your machine can handle from an outlet will really span basically the whole world's, outlets. So from 110 volts all the way up to I think it's 260 volts in different places. You can find that on I should have brought it out here, but I can send you a picture later.
Yeah.
We can superimpose it in. You can find that on the cord to your CPAP machine.
Mhm.
There's a little like brick sort of
Yeah.
thing that's in
Little
there.
box.
Yeah, a little small, like a black brick type thing that's in the middle of your of the power outlet, and it will say on there what is the voltage that that machine can handle. It will say input and output, and as long as the destination that you're going to has voltage coming out of their outlets within that range that your machine can handle, you don't need to do anything to convert. You don't need what's called a travel converter.
Right.
It's very rare that you need one of those now because most electronics are dual voltage. It's very
So that's different from people are going to need
an
an
adapter.
adapter,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
because if you take this to Europe, they're going to have three pin, like, or in the
Yeah.
UK it'll be three
Not
pins,
good.
and
Yeah.
they're all different in Europe.
You
So
just need
yeah,
an adapter to, yeah, that literally just changes the shape of the plug. And you do want to find those and bring them in advance because you can buy them at your destination, but they're going to be like triple the price because they know that you showed up
Yeah.
unprepared. So they
yeah.
are going
How
to
much can we
charge you
charge?
more. Yeah. So, so yeah, just check. You want to make sure exactly what is the outlet going to look like that you need to plug this into at your destination and what is the voltage. You can find so much information about that online. I even will find pictures people will take of the outlets at exactly where I'm going just to make sure that you're able to plug that in and your machine isn't gonna explode, but you have to double check that yours is one of those dual voltage
So
machines.
I'm thinking about a couple of the mishaps I've had. I don't know if you've had any mishaps, but one of the things I hope other people can learn from is I actually now always bring two adapters because one time I had an adapter that just stopped working.
Oh,
And it took me, I mean, I managed to find another one, but it was just really, because of course they stopped working like in the middle of the night.
yeah.
And then, so now I take two. And then the other thing I did one time was just double, triple check if you're using a PAP device that you have every single component. Because one time I traveled to Scotland to stay with my family over Christmas. And when I got there, I realized I had washed all of the different parts before I left, and everything had been left to dry. And I put it all back together, and I was in a big rush. And I left you're going to know exactly what I mean, Kristen. There's a plastic sort of seal part at the top of your humidifier chamber
Mm.
and which can detach for cleaning, but you absolutely need that for your machine to work.
Work.
Like, I mean, so I managed to make it through with just like turning like the humidifier off but it still wasn't ideal. Like I really need humidity. So that was just not a very comfortable journey. So just double, triple check before you're about to leave the house. Do I have all of
Yeah.
and especially when you're putting it in your travel bag, there's different parts for each thing. So that helps you to know that you've got everything, but just all the tiny little plastic bits and mass and just, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
really annoying if you get there and one of the pieces is missing.
Yes, I have seen at CVS's in the United States, so I don't know about other. Luckily, I've not ever had that happen to me, but I have seen that you can buy some
Yeah.
CPAP supplies, especially CPAP masks and tubing at CVS pharmacy. But you're going to pay a lot more for this, equipment that you had at home. So
Yeah.
exactly, better to be prepared.
So we're about to embark on a little foray into camping, and I don't actually know, even though I know both of you, I don't actually know your feelings about camping. Are you campers?
Anti. Anti-camping. But I have talked to a lot of people that have used their CPAP while
I love
camping.
that for the people who love to
Yeah.
camp.
So exactly the same as me. So I my experience is very limited, but I have one experience of camping with my CPAP that did not go well, and one experience of glamping, which I really think is still camping. So the first experience of actually camping, we went with a very outdoorsy family that we're friends with, even though it's not really my thing. And I was like, why would you not stay in a hotel? And so I was thinking it was going really well because we had the whole s'mores and the fire and all the stuff
Hmm.
going. And I was like, this is quite cozy and nice. But then when I came to go to bed, I hadn't really thought it through. And I had requested an outlet at our campsite, but I hadn't thought through like where we were setting up the tent
Ah,
versus where the
mm,
outlet was. And I didn't have an extension cord. So I was saying, I would say like if you're gonna do any actual camping, you're going to want to make sure that you have a campsite that has an electrical outlet, or indeed take a battery backup if
yeah.
you're really going off grid. Um, but so yeah, that would have been a lot better for me. I ended up sleeping in the car because I was just like, this is crazy. So yeah, I basically just was like, look, I can reach the car just about. So it wasn't really that fun. And then the
Mm,
glamping experience, they kind of persuaded me to go because it's glamping, right? So it's not really camping. It was in like a um, canvas tent almost. And actually, my experience there was excellent for CPAP because they had side tables beside
yeah.
and they had outlets right there. So it's definitely, you could have had a couple both needing CPAP that it would have been just fine. So I think a lot of it is find out in advance exactly what's available wherever you're going camping and good luck. I don't really have any other insights for that. So, oh, I know what I was going to ask you, Kristen. Have you experienced using a travel CPAP, like one of the smaller, and how
I
did that go?
just got a travel CPAP a couple of days before the trip that I just went on. I just
But
went
what
on
happens to
a
your big CPAP bag?
Okay, I know. This is where we're gonna. So luckily, my big CPAP bag is actually almost completely full with patches, like because it has progressed a lot since that picture that you have at the
Yeah,
beginning. But I just went on a trip, a Mediterranean cruise, and flew in and out of Italy for it, and I had literally just gotten the travel CPAP a couple of days before, and it didn't come with the specific carrying case for it, so I was like, I'll just use my regular CPAP bag anyway. And I was bringing my battery, so my
right.
battery fit in there too. So it kind of filled the bag out. But if
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, so I had said, I'm not even gonna get, a case for it. I'll just keep using this one. But if I'm not bringing the battery somewhere, I don't always, if I know I'm not going on an overnight flight, that bag for my ResMed full size machine is way too big for the travel one. So I did just order a bag for it. So now I've decided I did get patches for that one. I'm gonna start that one, but I might still put the patches on my original one too. We'll
So
see.
you're going to do smaller patches for the smaller.
I don't know. Yeah, I just bought some that they were the same size. I should have looked for if they have like little mini ones.
Yeah. So yeah, the
But
only thing it's worth saying about travel CPAP, some people completely swear by them.
mhm.
I tried, they are a bit noisier, like they do tend to make a little bit more noise,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I just am extremely easily woken up. So I never got on well with my travel
Hmm.
CPAP, so I just take my full size one that I'm used to. But yes, other people swear by them.
Yeah.
So, just to know
Yeah.
that that's an option. But the main thing to know about that is they're not covered by insurance, or I've
Hmm.
never heard about them being covered
No,
by insurance.
they're
So
not.
usually
No.
you're paying out of pocket for that. But for people that travel a lot, they find it worthwhile for some
Yeah.
people.
And I
So
think I personally not going to bring it every single time that I go on a trip. I'll probably just bring it when I'm going on like a bigger trip or I know
Yeah.
I have a lot of
yeah,
stuff with me because I don't mind bringing my home machine. And at the same time, exactly what you said, not only do you pay out of pocket for the machine, but you do have to continue to replace the supplies in the same way as your regular machine. And the
yeah,
supplies for it, like the tubing and the filters and all those things, those aren't covered by insurance
Right.
either. So
yeah.
you're going to just, over time, you're just going to be spending more and more and more. more.
Yeah.
The noise piece I was really nervous about because I've heard people say they're so loud. They're always going to be louder than a home machine because there's nothing else they can do if they're
Right.
that small. The motor
Right.
is just always going to feel a little bit more noticeable. But my husband and I had gotten just in the habit over time, even before I had the travel CPAP, of sleeping with a white noise machine at
Yeah.
home. And he found one time a travel white noise machine that was only a couple of dollars, and it's rechargeable, and we bring that with us. So that actually completely drowned out the noise that my travel
That's great.
CPAP made. So that's one piece of advice. And then it also helps, like Shelby said, if you don't know how loud it's going to be at your destination, you just pop on that
Yeah.
white noise machine because there could be people partying outside. I was
Well,
somewhere, there was, I swear, a pack of dogs was fighting the entire night that I was trying to sleep in this Airbnb. So you just don't know what you're going to get. So it helps with that as well.
well, they also make white noise. You can do it as an app. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
apps. You
Yeah.
can also, like, if you're going to be at a plane, like if you have earplugs, if you have white, no, you're
Yeah.
canceling earplugs. Like there are other things that you can try and practice at
That's
home
great.
and
Yeah.
see if that helps block the noise, that it's not as bothersome.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I wouldn't rule out a travel CPAP just because you're afraid of the
Right, right,
noise
right.
piece, because there are some solutions to it. I was worried about the lack of humidifier chamber
Yeah.
because I always use that on my home machine, but it really didn't bother me, honestly. The one that I have, and I was like, how is this going to
They
work?
have a
It's a,
clever thing. Can you kind
yeah.
of explain that? They have this clever thing which isn't, it doesn't use water, but it almost takes moisture from the air.
It's called an air mist. So the one that I have, it's so small, it's like that big. It attaches to the tubing, and I think it's called an air mist. And it looks like a little sponge, and that's supposed to act as your humidifier. I didn't even know really that that's how it worked. But it must have done something and worked because
Hmm.
I really didn't have like a dry sore throat or anything when I woke up, and that was the biggest piece that I thought I was gonna dislike about the travel
I'm
CPAP.
glad it
But
worked. That's
everyone's
great.
different.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have any other, real quick? We're gonna have to wrap up. I could talk to you ladies all day about this. But did you have anything else about? I know you just said you were on a cruise, and I've never. Well, I think maybe I've been on a cruise with the I just can't remember. If I have, it is a long time ago. So, was there anything you learned about? I think a lot of people are concerned about getting distilled water when they're on a cruise.
Yeah, that's another one I was wondering about that too. And somebody had just put in a comment one time when I had posted about traveling, oh, cruises will give you distilled water. And I was like, how is that true? Like that sounds too good to be true, but
I
they
know.
will. And it's
Oh,
the same thing, a couple of weeks before you're going to be going on your trip. Go on the cruise line website. And again, I went on Norwegian Cruise Line. They had an entire page dedicated to cruising with
right,
CPAP because, again, you're not going to be the first person that's gone on board with a CPAP machine,
right.
and they will deliver you distilled water, but you have to request it X number of days before. And they said if you forget, they have a limited amount on board that they can bring you. And then the other thing that it said that I was surprised by was they recommended you bring an extension cord because the outlet is across the room from the bed. And with that, some cruise lines will supply it to you because they want to be in control of what the extension cord is. This cruise line said, bring it with you, but we'll just inspect it before you can use it. And it worked out perfectly fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now I know we kind of touched a little bit on jet lag right at the beginning, but I know one of the things that we haven't, I just wanted you to talk about a little bit, Dr. Harris, is the melatonin. I feel like melatonin and jet lag, and I don't
So
know.
there's different tiers of like treatment for jet lag. So for everyone listening, the rule of thumb is typically number of time zones crossed is number of days to on average adjust. If you're my
Right.
husband, he adjusts in a day. Usually for me, it's about the average. So we always think first. So like first thing would be think light is actually one of the biggest body rhythm entrainers, as we call it. So like the thing that sets your body rhythm the most. So light exposure, and you have to be thoughtful about it. One of my favorite apps, I don't make any money with them. I wish I had invented it, is Time Shifter. And that
Yeah.
actually tells you, and it's a legit app developed by sleep scientists, when to have light and when to have dark. Because a lot of people, when they fly internationally, they're landing, if it's an overnight flight, and like from New York to Europe, and they get a lot of light, and that actually confuses your body more. So you need to be thoughtful about how you're using light exposure, east to west, then adjusting on the plane, what if you're going to have alcohol, try to avoid it, caffeine judiciously, naps. scheduled naps at certain times, light, dark, like I talked about. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. That's going to be your best friend. And change the clock right when you get on the plane to help adjust. Now, melatonin is something else that helps you to shift. It's not 100% necessary for everyone, but this is where we have data showing it's useful more so than
Right.
straight insomnia. So tiny doses, and actually time shifter will tell you when to take melatonin.
Mhm.
But time shifter, like I said, it will tell you when to take it, but little doses, like a half a milligram to 3 milligrams max, but little bits about an hour before bed, or it might be a different timing depending on how far you're going, can help to adjust you. You might do it a little bit before, you might do it right when you land, depending upon which direction. But melatonin can be useful. I recommend don't use it for the first time when traveling. Try it at home first because you can have vivid dreams, some nausea, sleepiness the next day. Just make sure you don't have any of those side effects.
So I also am not sponsored by Time Shifter, their app, but I have used that,
Yeah,
especially if I'm only going to be like if I'm doing a trip to Scotland and it's 5 hours difference, and I'm only going to be there for a short
yeah,
time. Like if I'm there for like a few weeks and I have plenty of time to adapt, but if I'm only there for a short time and I actually have to do things while I'm there,
yeah.
it does really help to kind of it helps you a few days before to kind of shift a little bit
Advance, yeah.
so that yeah, it doesn't feel quite as jarring. So,
Yeah.
well,
I used
listen.
it. I'm sorry. I used it for Japan last August
Oh,
for my family, and it was really helpful because, I mean, I can do all the charts, but it kind of did what I would have done
yeah,
anyways.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's great. Well, listen, both of you, thank you so much for taking
thank
part in this
you.
discussion. It's been so helpful. So I'm just going to go ahead and share some more slides here to wrap up. Where did my thing go? Uh, If I told you. Here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on some of the resources. So, like I was saying, we're going to have, as soon as our PDF toolkit is ready, we'll have a link to it below this video on YouTube. So if you're watching it after this already came out, it might already be there. But the CDC has a few good pages. So one of them, I know Dr. Harris touched on, the need to check about medications you might be on ahead of your trip, just to make sure whichever country you're going to, there isn't going to be a problem bringing that medication with you. So they've got a lot of guidelines on here about how to manage that. Um, there's also I mean, I know Kristen mentioned that she doesn't, I've never printed out the FAA compliance letter either, but if you want to be ultra crossing your T's and dotting your I's, you can just Google FAA compliance letter for in-flight medical equipment and then plus your manufacturer's name of your CPAP manufacturer. And all of the I just checked this morning before this discussion, and every manufacturer I did that for, there is one on there online. And so either whether you print it or you can bring it up on your phone. I've never been asked anything like that. Like Kristen was saying, she hasn't either, but like that would be a good thing to do just for peace of mind. And there's also the CDC. I'm glad that we mentioned high altitude because the CDC do have some special information for PAP device users like on altitude and like whether you might want to there's all sorts of information about it. So I think that their yellow book with lots of health information for international travel is a good resource. And the other thing is, so I, like Kristen, have never come across an issue with um, taking my CPAP on board and so your CPAP does not count towards your baggage allowance. So you should be able to have whatever, like, you have your carry-on, your personal item, and your CPAP machine because it's a medical device. It doesn't count as your baggage. So I've never printed this out, but if you wanted to, you could go to the US Department of Transport. They have a PDF like two-pager which explains that this is a medical device and you must be allowed to have it on board without it counting as luggage. So if you so wish, you could go and print that out. It's never been an issue. I think people are so used to seeing it on board now that, it's more like you make friends as you see so many people with CPAP. I put on here like some of the main US like patient organizations. So
Great.
there's us and Project Sleep, and then there's the Alliance of Sleep Apnea Partners, and also what was the American Sleep Apnea Association is now called the Wellness Sleep and Circadian Network. So just so that you're aware of those resources, and in the toolkit, we'll also provide all the international groups because I think it's good for people to have as many resources as possible. Let's see. Oops. I can't say anything like can't have any talks or presentations now without having a picture of Jet Black wearing my Sleep Apnea Let's Face It t-shirt. But just to remind everybody that we were highlighting this during Sleep Apnea Education Week. So we talked about it in our last video, but this campaign carries on all year. So if you've not yet taken part and you want a t-shirt to match Jet Black, there's the website at the bottom. You can go to project-sleep.com and get all the information about how to take part. So if you have not yet posted on social media about it, we really encourage you to do it. Just a reminder that we do have a national sleep helpline at Project Sleep, so people can call this number or go to the website to find it. And a reminder that this is not medical advice. It's a helpline where you can get support and help navigating to your next steps. So they'll take you through like whether you need to find a clinician in your area or an American Academy of Sleep Medicine accredited sleep center. They have all that information and can help get people to the right resources. Thank you so much to everybody watching who are donors, like whether you're an individual donor or just a supporter, we really appreciate it. And we also really appreciate our corporate partners, ApneaMed, Axon, Lilly, and ResMed. We couldn't do our work without their generous support. And a big thank you to everybody who's tuning in. And to let you know that we have various toolkits coming. I'm a little bit behind, but these are really good resources. Everything's free and you can access them on the Sleep Apnea Squad page of our website, project-sleep.com. The best way, though, is to get it straight to your inbox, your email inbox. So there is going to be a link below this video where you can sign up for e-updates. Also a reminder, I have a monthly Zoom call for sleep apnea support. It's called Coffee with Emma. Everybody always complains that it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and people shouldn't be drinking caffeine then, but feel free, it's just a cozy name. Feel free to drink whatever you like. It doesn't have to have caffeine in it. So the next one after this video airs is going to be July 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern, and you can bring any questions. Again, it's not medical advice, it's a place for support and community. You can bring any questions you have and just find some other people in the same situation as you with the same diagnosis. So thank you everyone so much, and we'll see you for the next video.